Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. What is the end goal for Dillian Whyte in this American campaign that he does want to take part in? We've had a few more details from promoter Eddie Hearn, who looks after Dillian Whyte on a fight-by-fight basis. So it's not like Whyte is sort of tied in, but he has been loyal to Eddie Hearn in recent years, so there's no reason to suggest that he's going to go elsewhere. And on that basis, this is what some of the comments in this video will be based upon. But Hearn talking to Boxing Social this week, saying that it may not just be one fight, it could be a couple of fights, saying that names like Jermaine Franklin, Charles Martin, and Chris Arreola, they are in the mix for an American fight for Dillian Whyte. And effectively he said that Jermaine Franklin was more likely for a first fight and then possibly someone like a Charles Martin. So what I sort of took from that, I'm just sort of paraphrasing what he said there, was they are targeting Jermaine Franklin, and that is the guy who seemingly is in the driver's seat, at least for an opponent for the first fight. And it sort of raises questions because Dillian Whyte has clearly said, and this was after his last fight against Alexander Povetkin, he wanted to have effectively a softer fight. He wanted to go to America, fight in America, and it's seemingly this softer fight is going to be Jermaine Franklin. So you have to sort of ask the question and beg the question, what is the point of it really? Beyond a softer fight, is this just some sort of stay busy fight while he waits with this WBC interim title? Because obviously he would like to face the winner of the main belt, which the fight on July the 24th is between Fury and Wilder. So is this just a stepping stone type fight? Just stay busy, take less risk, and sort of being cognizant that, you know, obviously with riskier fights, and he's rolled the dice in recent years, and it backfired against Alexander Povetkin in 2020 with him getting starched. And obviously Charles Martin in some of his commentary online just in recent days has been sort of taunting and tormenting Dillian Whyte with the fact that he was knocked out, saying that he has never been knocked out like that. Although he was pretty embarrassingly stopped by Anthony Joshua when he effectively, to most people's eyes, sold his title against Joshua in 2016. So, I mean, people, you know, in glass houses throwing stones and all that. But getting back to Whyte in the situation with him going to America, you know, if it's two fights, I'm still wondering, what does this really do for Dillian Whyte? Because say if you have a Jermaine Franklin fight first, that doesn't really build your profile. You've already said you wanted a softer fight and you fight him, that would be that softer fight. And if you beat him and conclusively, well, so what? Everyone was expecting that anyway. If anything, you know, you're actually taking on some risk, because what if he has a better performance, and what if you don't look that great? And remembering Jermaine Franklin hasn't been setting the world on fire. So, you know, any performance where he goes more rounds or makes it difficult for Whyte in any way, shape or form actually sort of helps Jermaine Franklin and his stock, and Dillian Whyte's stock may take a bit of a hit. But you're probably not going to get too much credit, because let's face it, that fight will be on DAZN. Dillian Whyte would go to DAZN, you have that fight, he probably has to take less money because it's not an opponent that probably DAZN is that enamored with overall, and won't want to sort of pay pay-per-view type money that Dillian Whyte has been used to in the UK for facing stiffer opposition. And in this time of the pandemic, they have really been tightening their purse strings, and it hasn't sort of been splashing the cash around like sort of 2018, 2019. They have been cutting fighters loose. It's paying fighters less, you know, than they used to. That is just, I mean, it's still pretty decent money compared to some other markets, that sort of stuff, but that they're more sort of matured in that American market now. They don't have to spend in as much, and because of the pandemic, they probably don't want to. So you ask the question, well, what does that fight, a win, do for Dillian Whyte? Not much. Not much, really. And even a Charles Martin fight, that probably doesn't do a huge amount either. Say if he had a second fight against Martin. And stay with me here, because sure, there is the argument, Charles Martin, he's got, you know, some name recognition in the United States. He was briefly a belt holder before selling it to Joshua. Obviously, he can talk some trash. He's got some profile. Then you have it on a platform that's behind a paywall, and not a lot of people, in comparison to the general sporting market, if you get something on free-to-air TV, not a lot of people have it. How does that sort of fight, Whyte versus Martin, actually appeal to the casual audience if Whyte's not really known at all in the United States to, comparatively to other big name fighters that maybe have some more broad, cut through with the casual audience? So if he's already not that well known, and against a guy in Charles Martin who has a little bit of profile, but let's face it, he's not dragging masses of fans, casual fans, to the DAZN app. But even then, I don't think that fight gets made. And I've said this before, promotional matters matter. He's with a rival organization, the PBC. They're not really in the business of farming out their heavyweights to help sell other fights on other platforms. And I know some people don't want to talk about the realities of that, but it is a reality. And you can't forget that when we're talking about, these fights potentially getting made, because it is a hurdle. And in the case of, say Charles Martin, all his recent fights have been on PBC. He's not going to get farmed out, I don't think, to face Dillian Whyte. Although that name was mentioned by Eddie Hearn, Chris Arreola as well. I think in reality, Jermaine Franklin out of the three is likely. Anyone else? I mean, you could potentially Otto Wallin and Dillian Whyte. I could see maybe that being more realistic, because Wallin is with Dimitri Salita, who also promotes Jermaine Franklin. So potentially you could work with those independent promoters, independent fighters, get fights made for Whyte in the United States. But still, what is the end goal? Because I'm not really sort of seeing how any of these fights, even a Charles Martin fight on the off chance it did get made, how that's going to really build his name and make him a well-known fighter in the United States. Maybe a bit more well-known with boxing fans, but let's face it, boxing fans already know who Dillian Whyte is. So I'm scratching my head a little bit, but I do think that, some of this is down to, well, he wants to wait and see what happens with the main WBC belt. He wants to basically get his shot at the winner eventually. And maybe that eventually is a year down the track, but in the meantime, probably going to take fewer risks comparatively to what had been happening in the past couple of years, where he went on a run of pay-per-view fights, fighting the likes of Joseph Parker, Alexander Povetkin, Derek Chisora, Oscar Rivas, etc., winning all of those, but then getting upset against Alexander Povetkin, but ultimately avenging that loss. And bearing in mind, Whyte is in his 30s now, he'll be looking at his place in the division, probably thinking, okay, this title shot I've been trying to track down in the WBC forever and a day, I need to just be a bit smarter with what I do now. So he may have to take shorter money now just for a few fights while he waits, but it probably is the smarter thing to do. Although maybe it's not going to be, at least for one fight from, the looks of it, maybe it's not going to be in the sort of fights that we want to see him in. But ultimately, compared to other heavyweights, he's had pretty decent matchmaking, although got well paid for it too in recent years. But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.